A nationwide arrest warrant has been issued for an ICE agent for criminal activity prosecutors allege he committed while he was in Minneapolis during that surge back in February. This finally seems to be the first piece of accountability for ICE agents terrorizing the streets in Minneapolis and across the country. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. So many of us have watched what's happened with Renee Good, with Alex Preddy, with so many video and images coming out where ICE agents were brandishing their weapons, assaulting people, and seemingly nothing was being done. Well, finally, we have an arrest warrant. This warrant has been issued for ICE agent Gregory Donnell Jr. He's evidently located right now in Maryland, 35 years old. But according to the Hennepin County attorney, Mary Morty, who issued this arrest warrant, she said back in February 2nd, specifically, he committed 2 counts of second-degree assault with a deadly weapon, and she is trying to hold him to account. So this evidently is what happened. And frankly, this story is something that probably many of you have seen a similar version of on social media or heard about a similar version of, because we saw ICE agents acting with impunity. And then, of course, Kristi Noem, J.D. Vance and the others and Stephen Miller saying that they were above the law, that they had absolute immunity, which of course is not true. And those of us were asking for something to be done. Finally, finally something being done. So the story of what happened, evidently, this ICE agent was making his last stop and was heading toward his home base, let's say the detention center. This is the final drive of his day. He had another passenger in the back, but it is the driver who brandished the gun who has this warrant against him. And so there was the typical lanes. I mean, this is a typical situation. This is how this story is so disturbing that it reached the level that it did, that this man brandished his weapon. So thankfully, there is an accountability here, because prosecutors are describing in this complaint how 2 lanes merge into one and how there is a shoulder that you're not supposed to drive on the shoulder, but some people do in order to get around the traffic before that one lane then goes back into 2. Similar situations so many of us have been in. Well, the ICE agent expedition car was driving in this shoulder, and evidently the victim's car kind of moved their car over a little bit to block the ICE agent from going around the traffic in the shoulder. One of the victims said that they thought that they were trying to slow this car down because it was speeding down this shoulder. Of course, the ICE agent car, like so many that we've seen, has 0 markings. It is impossible to know that this is some sort of federal officer or law enforcement in any way, shape, or form. In fact, the license plate was a Utah license plate. This was, of course, occurring in Minneapolis. So this is what happened. So they move their car over a little bit, blocking or slowing down the ICE agent's car. Then they move back into their regular lane. The ICE agent continues. He could continue past the victim's car and just go about his way. But no, being the ICE agent that he is and acting with impunity that we have seen so many other times, what he does is actually take out his gun. The victim says it's a Glock. In fact, takes out his gun, points it at the head of the victim 1 and the victim 2. So the driver and the passenger of the victim's car points it at his head and yells something at them. They can't hear what the man is yelling because they have their windows rolled up. And then the ICE agent moves on. Well, the victims are so disturbed about the fact that somebody just pointed a gun at them that they call 911 and report the incident. And this starts an investigation. They have phone camera footage of what happened. Also, they were able to obtain video surveillance of that part of the roads in order to see that, yes, this transpired exactly how the victim said that it transpired. The interesting thing, of course, in the statement that they make, the victims told them, the investigators, that they had, quote, no idea he was law enforcement and believed they were being threatened by a crazy person aiming guns at people. Well, yes, that person was an ICE agent, but also that is a crazy person that is aiming guns at people. And according to the complaint, this ICE agent wasn't responding to an emergency. He was literally doing no law enforcement activity at the time. And not only that, but he never reported the incident to his superiors. My favorite thing to do after long days is sit on a couch and pull out a blanket. I am a blanket person, and Lola blankets are by far my favorite blankets. In fact, they're the favorite of my entire family, so I've had to get more than one. And perhaps the best thing about it is that they still look and feel great despite the fact that I have to wash it many times with the pets and the kids. I used to go through blankets fairly quickly because they just never looked or felt very good after multiple washes. The thing that is great about Lola blankets is that it is double hemmed for durability, so it doesn't pill or shed even after so many washes. And it's crafted with ultra soft luxury faux fur and a signature 4-way stretch that sets it apart. It has 20,000 5-star reviews, and once you feel it, you'll know why. It is called the world's #1 blanket. This thing is next level. And perhaps another great thing that I love about it is the fact that they donate a portion of their proceeds to breast cancer research. And they even have a Blanket for Brave program where they give blankets to people going through treatment. I have the large. It is perfect for cozying up solo or someone else, but they even have an extra large, which is massive. Plus they have weighted blankets for calming vibes and matching pillows. And right now, for a limited time, our listeners can get 40% off select Lola Blankets products with code MISTRIAL at checkout. Just head to lolablankets.com and use code MISTRIAL to get 40% off your order. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and let them know we sent you. Wrap yourself in luxury with Lola Blankets. So here he has power that Americans gave him. That gun is not his gun. It's the Americans' gun. And using it against people in America with a completely illegal way, just for no reason, getting upset about this. And, you know, trained law enforcement know how and when to use a gun. And we talk a lot about times that they don't do that, especially Black men in particular understand that police often use force against them in a way that is not used against other people. We can criticize how law enforcement uses force. But even then, this level is like 10 times that, because there was no law enforcement involved here. He was just mad. He takes out his gun. He points it at people. And so thankfully, he now has a warrant out for his arrest and $100,000 bail. He is not in the state of Minneapolis. So he is going to have to, not in the state of Minnesota. So he's going to have to get transferred. We do have that where they, just like as if you were leaving the country, you get brought back in if you have charges against you. States do that all the time. They know how to transfer people. So hopefully Maryland will cooperate. Perhaps it's a better state to be in than, let's say, if you went into a deep red state like as Texas, they may not want to cooperate with sending him to Minnesota. But this is where we're at. And for those of you wondering whether or not this is possible, we know that they tried to claim there's absolute immunity, which is not true. It is true that there's this supremacy clause and that we have federalism and state. But the law is that you cannot prosecute a federal agent for doing their job in a state unless they are doing something that is unnecessary for them to fulfill their role. That was unnecessary for him to fulfill his role. That was not a part of him fulfilling his role. There was literally no law enforcement activity at the time. So you cannot you cannot claim that you're assaulting somebody is somehow necessary for your role. And frankly, it is the same for the murders of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. And we still don't know the name of the person who murdered Alex Preddy, which in itself is against this democracy, because transparency, public information, public court system, we should at the bare minimum know his name. But you cannot say that you're committing murder that is somehow necessary to fulfill your role. So hopefully this is the first of many of ICE agents who are violating state and local laws to be held in account and have justice for the people there. You cannot violate state law with impunity, even if you're a federal officer. He could ask that this be transferred to federal court, saying federal court has jurisdiction over him as a federal officer. But that in itself does not give him immunity, does not mean dismissal of this case. The precedent actually is in favor of the prosecution. In 2001, the Ninth Circuit allowed an Idaho County prosecution, this is a county prosecution as well, of an FBI sniper who evidently killed an unarmed woman during their raid that they had of Ruby Ridge, Idaho, saying that it could be argued that doing so was unreasonable as part of their fulfilling their job. And so they allowed the case to proceed and not get dismissed outright. It was later dropped by the prosecution, so there was not actually a conviction in there, but they were allowed to proceed with the prosecution. The fact that it was a federal officer being subject to state law violations was not in itself a get out of free jail card. So definitely keeping an eye on this case. Very hopeful that finally something is being done for really the many, many violations of state law, including murder, done by ICE agents. My name is Dina Doll. Be sure to subscribe to the MeidasTouch Network if you haven't already. Check out the Mistrial podcast, both on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts, and look at our sponsors in the description below. So grateful for our sponsors. They don't censor what I have to say right now, which is just so critical in this moment.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.